The Peerage of France was a hereditary distinction within the French nobility which appeared in 1180 in the Middle Ages, and only a small number of noble individuals were peers. It was abolished in 1789 during the French Revolution, but it reappeared in 1814 at the time of the Bourbon Restoration, which followed the fall of the First French Empire, when the Chamber of Peers was given a constitutional function somewhat along British lines, which lasted until the Revolution of 1848. On 10 October 1831, by a vote of 324 against 26 of the Chamber of Deputies, hereditary peerages were abolished, but peerages for the life of the holder continued to exist until the chamber and rank were definitively abolished in 1848. The prestigious title and position of Peer of France was held by the greatest, highest-ranking members of the French nobility. French peerage thus differed from British peerage, for the vast majority of French nobles, from baron to duke, were not peers. The title of Peer of France was an extraordinary honor granted only to a small number of dukes, counts, and princes of the Roman Catholic Church. It was analogous to the rank of grandee of Spain in this respect. The words pair and pairie, the French word pairie, is equivalent to the English peerage. The individual title, pair in French and peer in English, derives from the Latin par, equal. It signifies those noblemen and prelates considered to be equal to the monarch in honor, and it considers the monarch thus to be primus inter pares, or first among equals. The main uses of the word refer to two historical traditions in the French kingdom, before and after the First French Empire of Napoleon I. The word also exists to describe an institution in the Crusader states. Some etymologists posit that the French word baron, taken from the Latin baro, also derives from the Latin par. Such a derivation would fit the early sense of baron as used for the whole peerage and not simply as a noble rank below the comital rank. Under the monarchy, feudal period and ancient regime, medieval French kings conferred the dignity of a peerage on some of the pre-eminent vassals, both clerical and lay. Some historians consider Louis VII to have created the French system of peers. A peerage was attached to a specific territorial jurisdiction, either an episcopal see for episcopal peerages or a fief for secular ones. Peerages attached to fiefs were transmissible or inheritable with the fief, and these fiefs are often designated as pairie duché or pairie comté. The traditional number of peers is 12. They are Archbishop Duke of Reims, Premier Peer; Bishop Duke of Laon; Bishop Duke of Langes; Bishop Count of Beauvais; Bishop Count of Chalons; Bishop Count of Noyon; Duke of Normandy; Duke of Aquitaine, also called Duke of Guyenne; Duke of Burgundy; Count of Flanders; Count of Champagne; Count of Toulouse. According to Matthew Paris, the Duke of Normandy and Duke of Aquitaine ranked above the Duke of Burgundy, but since the first two were absorbed into the crown early in the recorded history of the peerage, the Duke of Burgundy has become the premier lay peer. In the heyday, the Duke of Normandy was undoubtedly the mightiest vassal of the French crown. The constitution of the peerage first became important in 1202, for the court that would try King John of England in his capacity as vassal of the French crown, based on the principle of trial by peers. A court wishing to acquire jurisdiction over John had to include persons deemed to be of equal rank to him in his capacity as either Duke of Aquitaine or Normandy. None of the peers had been specified, but since John's trial required the presence of the peers of France, it can be said that the first two peerages identifiable in the documents would be the duchies of Aquitaine and Normandy. In 1216, Erard of Brienne claimed the county of Champagne through the right of his wife, Philippa of Champagne. Again, this required the peers of France, so the county of Champagne is also a peerage. 6 of the other peers were identified in the charter: the Archbishop of Reims, the bishops of Langes, Chalons, Beauvais and Noyon, and the Duke of Burgundy. The 10th peerage that could be identified in the documents is the county of Flanders. In 1224, in that year John de Nesle entered a complaint against Joan of Flanders. The countess responded that she could only be cited by a peer. The absence of the two remaining peers in the documents of this era can be explained thus: the Bishop of Laon had only been recently elected at the time the other ecclesiastical peers were mentioned, in 1216, and probably not yet consecrated. The Count of Toulouse, on the other hand, as a heretic. Thus, though there had been differences in the dates of the identification of the 12 peers, they were probably instituted simultaneously and their identities were known to the contemporaries. These 12 peerages are known as the Ancient Peerage, or Père Ancien, and the number 12 is sometimes said to have been chosen to mirror the 12 paladins of Charlemagne in the Chanson de Gesta. Parallels may also be seen with the mythical Knights of the Round Table under King Arthur. So popular was this notion that, for a long time, people thought that peerages had originated in the reign of Charlemagne, who was considered a model king and a shining example for knighthood and nobility. The dozen peers played a role in the royal sacre, a consecration, during the liturgy of the coronation of the king, attested to as early as 1179, symbolically upholding his crown, and each original peer had a specific role, often with an attribute. Since the peers were never 12 during the coronation in early periods, due to the fact that most lay peerages were forfeited to emerge in the crown, delegates were chosen by the king, mainly from the princes of the blood. In later periods, peers also held up by poles a baldachin, a cloth of honor over the king during much of the ceremony. This paralleled the arch-offices attached to the electorates, the even more prestigious and powerful First College in the Holy Roman Empire, the other heir of Charlemagne's Frankish Empire. The 12 original peers were divided in two classes: 6 clerical peers hierarchically above the 6 lay peers, which were themselves divided in 2, 3 dukes above 3 counts. In 1204 the Duchy of Normandy was absorbed by the French crown, and later in the 13th century 2 more of the lay peerages were absorbed by the crown. So in 1297 3 new peerages were created: the county of Artois, the county of Anjou and the Duchy of Brittany, to compensate for the 3 peerages that had disappeared. Thus, beginning in 1297 the practice started of creating new peerages by letters patent, specifying the fief to which the peerage was attached, and the conditions under which the fief could be transmitted for princes of the blood who held an appanage. By 1328 all appanagists would be peers. The number of lay peerages increased over time from 7 in 1297 to 26 in 1400, 21 in 1505, and 24 in 1588. By 1789, there were 43, including 5 held by princes of the blood, Penthièvre, and 37 other lay peers, ranking from the Duchy of Uzes, created in 1572, to the Duchy of Aubigny, created in 1787. One family could hold several peerages. The minimum age was 25. The majority of new peerages created up until the 15th century were for royal princes, while new peerages from the 16th century on were increasingly created for non-royals. After 1569 no more countships were made into peers, and peerage was exclusively given to duchies. Occasionally the Parliament refused to register the letter of patent conferring peerage on them. Apart from the coronation of French kings, the privileges of peers were largely matters of precedence. The titles Monseigneur, Votre Grandeur and the address Mon Cousin, suggesting parentage to the royal family, or at least equivalence by the king, and a privilegium fori. This meant that judicial proceedings concerning the peers and the pairie fiefs were exclusively under the jurisdiction of the Court of Peers. Members of the peerage had also the right to sit in a lit de justice, a formal proceeding, and speak before the Parliament, and they were also given high positions at the court, and a few minor privileges such as entering the courtyards of royal castles in their carriages, while many lay peerages became extinguished over time, as explained above. The ecclesiastical peerages, on the other hand, were perpetual, and only a seventh one was created before the French Revolution, taking precedence behind the six original ones, being created in 1690 for the Archbishop of Paris, after centuries as a mere suffraganage, styled as second archevêque, for he held the Duchy of St. Cloud. The expression pair was also sometimes used for groups of nobles within a French fief. These peers did not benefit from the royal privileges listed above. A fanatical defender of the privileges of the peers was the memoirist Louis de Rouvroy, Duke of St. Simon, who was neither very wealthy nor influential at court, but whose father had been made a peer. Louis XIV tried to promote the status and protocol of his legitimized bastards in various minor respects, and St. Simon devotes long chapters of his memoirs to his struggles against this. Under the First Republic and the First Empire, the Revolutionary and Napoleonic period, the original peerage of the French realm, like other feudal titles of nobility, was abolished during the French Revolution, on the night of August 4, 1789, the night of the abolition of feudalism. Napoleon I reinvented the functions of the ancien pairies, so to speak, as he created in 1806 the exclusive Dutch as grand fiefs in 1806 and first recreated the honorary functions at imperial coronation, but now vested in great offices not attached to fiefs. Napoleon reinstituted French noble titles in 1808, but did not create a system of peerages comparable to the United Kingdom. He did create a House of Peers on his return from Elba in 1815, but the House was not constituted before his abdication at the end of the 100 Days. Chamber of Peers. The French peerage was recreated by the Charter of 1814 with the Bourbon Restoration, albeit on a different basis from before 1789. A new Chamber of Peers was created, similar to the model of the British House of Lords. In the Revolution of 1848, the Chamber of Peers was disbanded definitively. Peerage of Jerusalem. The Kingdom of Jerusalem, the only Crusader state equal in rank to such European kingdoms as France and England, had a peerage modelled on the French and using the French language. Charlemagne's 12 peers. In the medieval French chansons de geste and material associated with the matter of France that tell of the exploits of Charlemagne and his knights, such as the Song of Roland. The elite of the imperial army and Charlemagne's closest advisers were called the 12 peers. The exact names of the peers vary from text to text. In the Song of Roland, the peers are Roland, Olivia, Green, Correa, Berengier, Oton, Samson, Englia, Yvonne, Ivoire, Anseus, and Gerard de Roussillon. The number of peers is thought to parallel 12 apostles. Coats of arms of the 12 peers.